And we should just go ahead and get started. I'm very excited to talk to you about Gilman today. As I said, my name is Daphne Johnson. I work at the Study Abroad office. I've been here a little over 5 years now, and I really love to talk about the Gilman Scholarship and have just spread awareness about this amazing scholarship opportunity. And I also advise for programs. If you're going to Italy, you might be talking to me. So I will go ahead and pass it over to my colleague, Jacob, so he can introduce himself.
Yes, hello everybody. Thank you for joining us for our info session today. I think you're going to get a lot of great information. It's a wonderful scholarship program. I oversee our recruitment efforts here and also our peer advising. And so if you ever have any questions about study abroad, you can come to the Global Center 2 to 5 any afternoon, no appointment needed. And we'll chat with you about study abroad, about scholarship opportunities, anything that related to study abroad we can help with. And for today, I'll just be in the back helping navigate stuff. So please drop your questions in the chat as you think of them, and we will get to them.
I'll go ahead and go next. Hi, everyone. My name is Lisette Davey. I work at the Honors College in Arizona International, and my role is to help you find an international experience. So in the chat, just to get started to make you feel comfortable, let's see, where in the world would you want to go? Just go ahead and share that. And while you type that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Angie.
Hi, thank you guys for coming. My name is Angie Valdez, and I'm the Assistant Director of Internal Scholarships here at the University of Arizona for the Rangi Honors College. Prior to this role, I also worked at the Financial Aid Office in case you have any questions about what types of financial aid funding you can utilize while you're abroad. You definitely go ahead and let me know. I'm definitely here as a resource for you guys.
Valeria, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, my name is Valeria Quijada and I'm the Assistant Director in the Office of Nationally Competitive Scholarships. So Gilman is considered a nationally competitive scholarship and I myself am a Gilman alumni. So big fan of the scholarship. I think it really opens a lot of doors, and not to mention the very generous funding for study abroad. I also work with other types of scholarships. Some of them are also for study abroad, just a little different, or for research or just different types of scholarship. My office does work with all students across campus. So I am housed under the Honors College, and that can be a misconception sometimes, but I do work with all students, and I hope that I'll be hearing from some of you very soon.
Thank you all for the introductions. As you can see, you are with a team that fully supports and encourages you all to learn about not just the Gilman, but other funding opportunities. And we're all here to help you achieve and submit successful essays and as a network for support. So as you can see, we have different areas of expertise, and we are happy to provide any guidance and advice as you find funding and apply for these amazing opportunities. And a little bit about how our event is going to be run a little bit today is I'm going to go through just the basic information about Gilman, what it is, the eligibility criteria, and how to apply. And then at the end, we have a panel of some students who were recently awarded, as well as our staff here with their various expertise. Angie was even a financial aid certifier for Gilman in past years. Some of our staff have been panelists and readers for the Gilman Scholarship. So we each bring a lot of experience and wisdom to the table to help support you throughout this. So without further ado, let's get started about talking about Gilman and getting into the nitty-gritty of what this is. So the Gilman's actually, I'm going to go ahead and turn off my video here. Give me a second. So the Gilman Scholarship is actually, as Valeria mentioned, a nationally competitive scholarship that is sponsored by the U.S. Department of State. And it has been around since 2001, and it turned into this amazing opportunity that has become the largest study abroad scholarship for U.S. undergraduate students, providing an opportunity to help students with financial barriers to study abroad. And I'm really excited to share that it's truly an achievable scholarship. Many of our students have been awarded Gilman in these past years. We're super proud of them, and it's actually been almost 400 students. And I have a little bit more on the next slide about that. our students are just incredible and put a lot of thought and effort into their application, and they have been awarded over $1.7 million, which is a really amazing amount. And the goal is exactly to support students who have been historically underrepresented in international experiences. The Gilman Scholarship is actually named after a retired congressman, and it's specifically for students that have demonstrated financial need through the FAFSA and being eligible through for a Pell Grant. Scholarships can range up to $5,000, so it is substantial amount that the Gilman can provide for you, and utilize the award money to help you with the program costs, not just the program costs, but perhaps like airline tickets, application to a passport, and all those other costs that are associated with study abroad. These amounts do vary a little bit. It can depend on how long your program is, your financial need, and those kinds of things as well. They do vary up to a little bit, but they can be up to $5,000. There's also a component of the Gilman application or the Gilman Awards that is specifically for students that are studying what are labeled a critical need language. And I have the list of critical need languages here. And I wanted to include information about this because if you are studying one of these critical need languages abroad where it's predominantly spoken, you will be eligible for an additional $3,000 on top of the normal $5,000 that you could be eligible for. So this is a really great opportunity for our students that are studying these languages. And it's really great to note that if you're studying these languages in sign language, you would also be eligible for the Critical Need Language Award, which is frequently abbreviated as the CNLA. And that will require an additional essay. I will be talking a little bit more about the essays further on through the presentation, but if you are studying these languages, it is incredibly important and strongly encouraged that you apply for the Gilman because you can be eligible for additional funding. And speaking of additional funding, I'm very, very thrilled to announce a new-ish scholarship that our office is offering for students that apply to the Gilman. So we are calling it the Gilman Application Award because it's specifically for students that complete their Gilman scholarship application. So if you meet the Gilman scholarship eligibility and you fully complete your Gilman application and you participate on one of our U of A study abroad programs, then you would be eligible to receive $500 just for applying, for fully completing your application the term you go abroad. So it's definitely a scholarship program that our office wants to for our students to take advantage of, right? And we know that applying for a scholarship can be time consuming, can be difficult. It is essay based, so it's definitely going to take some time to reflect and put your thoughts into an amazing stellar essay. So we want to honor and reward students that go through the application process by providing an application, Gilman Application Award of $500. So one more reason to apply for the Gilman application. Talking about eligibility, as I mentioned in the previous slide. So the Gilman eligibilities are outlined there on that slide. So first and foremost, it is for US citizens only, and only for undergraduate students that are in good academic standing. You also must be receiving a Pell Grant either when you are applying for the Gilman, or you would have to provide proof to Gilman that you would be eligible to receive a Pell Grant during the term that you are abroad. And it must be for, you can only use this for study abroad or internship programs that you are receiving academic credit on, and in a country with a travel advisory level of 1 or 2. So I have a few links on our presentation, and everybody who's here today will receive a link to this presentation and a few other resources so that you can look up your country's travel advisory. I would say most of our programs are in a country where the Department of State travel advisory is at a level 1 or 2. It goes all the way up to 3, or it goes all the way up to 4. So it's really important as you're thinking about applying to look up the country that you're going to, and making sure that it is at a Department of State travel advisory of 1 or 2. An additional, not eligibility requirement, but instead preferences are provided to students who haven't studied abroad, to veteran students, and to students with diverse backgrounds, such as, first-gen students, students in the STEM fields, students from diverse cultural and ethnic backgrounds, students with disabilities, and then also for students that are attending minority serving institutions, which the University of Arizona is a Hispanic serving institution. So these are all really important preference notes that you should be including in the essays that we'll be talking about shortly. There is this really great Gilman Scholarship program is specifically for students that are child and spousal dependents of active duty military members. So for anybody that is a child or spouse dependent of someone who's currently in the active in the U.S. Armed Forces, you would have the same application as the normal Gilman application, but there would be a question that asks specifically, are you a child dependent or spousal dependent of someone who's an active duty service member? And when you click yes, it will ask you to upload the appropriate documentation, and those students would get filtered into essentially their own category of readers and part of the Gilman. But overall, the application, the essays, everything is essentially the same. It's just that when you tick yes on that box, you'll be asked to upload appropriate documentation. For these students, it is not necessary for you to have a Pell Grant, but you must be the recipient of any title for federal financial aid. So that means you should have a FAFSA file to be eligible. And the awards are a flat $5,000 as opposed to up to $5,000. So it is a really great opportunity for students that are child or spousal dependents of active duty service members. And I want to talk a little bit about the application process. So it's fully an online application. The information that you need to know is what study abroad program you're going to be, you're either applying to or will be applying to. You will have to upload unofficial transcripts, which is something that you can download off UAccess. And you will need to know 2 different advisors. One is going to be your study abroad advisors. So that could be perhaps me, that could be my colleague Lisette that you met earlier. And I do have some links on how to find your study abroad program advisor, depends on which program you're applying to. And you will also need to indicate who the financial aid advisor is. And in everybody's case, they should be selecting the same individual for the financial aid advisor, and that's Jonathan Phillips. And then there will be a component of the essays. So when you apply, you will have, we will be notified that you selected us as certifiers. Gilman automatically lets us know that you have completed your application and that we need to certify your application. And we get reminders, and we will log into a portal and go through the certification process. And essentially what certifying means is that you entered your program name correctly, the dates, the cost. That's the kind of things that a study abroad advisor would certify. And the financial aid advisor would certify things that are on your FAFSA, that you submitted your FAFSA, and those kinds of things. I do have some great and very important dates and deadlines that are coming up. So the upcoming cycle is the March cycle, and there's 2 cycles in per year. So the application recently opened, and the deadline is March 9th, 2023. And I have a little asterisk there because it is Pacific time. So it's important to keep an eye on those time zones. So everything must be completed. Your part of the application must be completed by March 9th, 2023. I always tell students not to wait till the very last minute, because we have in past years encountered that, the Gilman website was just so overloaded with students submitting right around midnight that it crashed and had technical issues and stuff like that. So definitely don't wait till the very last minute. And then we certify before March 16th. And students are notified in May. So if you're applying to the March 2023 program, or application cycle, I should say, your program must start between May 23 through April 24th. And the terms is summer, fall, academic year, and spring 24. So you potentially, if you're studying abroad in spring 24, you would actually be eligible to apply for 2 cycles. Let's say you apply for the March cycle, you aren't selected, you could actually apply for the October cycle. So if you're applying for the October cycle, your program must be a summer, fall, or spring, summer, fall, academic year 24. And these are the dates for the October cycle. And now we're going to go ahead and start talking about the essays. And the very first essay that students have to submit as part of their application is the statement of purpose, and it's maximum of 7,000 characters, which is actually including spaces, and it's actually not a whole lot. It's about a page and a half, and it's probably, I would say, the most important essay of the entire application. It's basically your personal interview on paper. This is where you really have to talk about, yourself, your program, your goals, all the, how your program fits for your academic goals, professional and personal goals. This is where the readers that are going to be, the panelists, this is where they learn everything about you. They really have no other way of getting information about you unless you specifically state it. So make sure as you think through and plan out your statement of purpose, you're talking about what makes you you, and why the study abroad program is perfect for your professional and academic goals. How is it going to help you grow as a student, and as a person as well? I would definitely say that a competitive applicant should demonstrate academic preparedness to go on this program, and like the benefit that you will be receiving from study abroad. I think that it's important to note that there is no GPA requirement for the Gilman, but they definitely want to hear about how your academic preparedness for studying abroad, and how you will meet and overcome any challenges that you may face on the programs. They're looking to support students from diverse backgrounds and experiences. So this is the place, it's your time to shine. This is where you should really be talking about your identities and the communities that you identify with, and what makes you you. It's important to just really make it clear that this program that you're going to is perfect for you and all the goals you're trying to accomplish. I think it's important to note that as a Gilman reader, people could be reading up to 80 essays. So make sure that as you outline your statement of purpose, you make it clear and easy to read, but also identify all these unique characteristics about yourself, your program, and your goals. The reader won't know anything about the program you're going to either. So make sure you talk about if there's any volunteer opportunities, if there's an internship component that you will be participating on, if it's a homestay, if it includes language learning. They need to know those details beyond just you, but your program, and how is this going to help you advance as a student and eventually your future career. So this is probably the most important essay out of all of them. And I'm going to go ahead and talk about, again, the next essay, and I see some questions in the chat. So thank you for putting them there, and we will be sure to address them. The next essay is part of the community impact. There's 2 community impact essays, and they break it into 2 sections. The first one is the Building Mutual Understanding essay, and this one's a total of 3,000 characters total, again, including spaces. And this one is specifically Gilman asking you, what does it mean to be a US citizen and diplomat abroad to you? So how are you going to go abroad and seeking opportunities to be engaged, making connections with your community while you're abroad? And having meaningful interactions. And I think that this is a difficult one for students sometimes, because I think what Gilman wants to do is ultimately advance student. This is a form of diplomacy, is how they say it. Study abroad is a form of diplomacy. And how are you going to go to your community while you're abroad and go beyond being a tourist? How will you make meaningful connections? What does that mean to you? And I think the students that are the most successful with this essay is first thinking about what it means to be a US citizen for them now. What is, being a US citizen is so broad, and we have such a diversity of people here. So what does that mean to you, and how does that tie into your identity, and how are you going to bring those pieces of you and your identity to your community, and how will you intentionally and meaningfully interact with the people there, with the school that you might be attending, with the local community. And so this one is something that will require some legwork on your part, probably, to look at, like, if you're going to a university abroad, do they have like a volunteer club that maybe you can participate in? Do they have any local animal rescues, for example, that you plan on volunteering at? Is there a way to make connections with like an internship? So this may require you to do a little bit of research of the location you will be going to in advance, so that you can talk to some of these points and how you'll be making meaningful connections while you're abroad. The next community impact essay is for the follow-on service project. This one is, I really love this part of Gilman, because the whole point of this follow-on service project is for students that are awarded, how will you spread the word about Gilman and inspire other students to go abroad and also apply for Gilman. And I really love that pay it forward type of mentality that Gilman has with this. And so the follow-on service project is also 3,000 characters, and it will ask students, if you are selected, how will you give back by inspiring others to study abroad. And what this is like an opportunity for you to think about what groups and communities you're engaged with here currently, and how you can inspire students to go abroad and do what you're about to do. I think the students that are the most successful with this essay are students that are thinking about the clubs and organizations that they're currently involved with. So many of you are involved on campus in some way, shape, or form, or like in clubs, in your major, in other, organized sports. How can you reach students that are within those communities and talk to them about Gilman? It could be on campus. It could also be within the community. It doesn't necessarily have to be here at the U of A. Perhaps you have, you work off campus, or perhaps you have a great connection with a local library, or maybe even your former high school. Maybe you created a really strong friendship with the principal at your previous high school, that is also an opportunity to do a follow-on service project proposal for. The most important part about this essay is that it's feasible, and you talk about it in very, like, I will be doing this. I've already talked to this person, and very specific steps that you will be taking to accomplish your follow-on service project proposal. I do have some samples here on this next slide, just to kind of get some ideas flowing, and some of the students that are here today that will be part of the Q&A panel in a few minutes, that's what they are doing as part of their follow-on service project. Some students just recently helped out at our spring study abroad fair and tabled with study abroad to talk about Gilman and answer questions. So those are collaborating with our office is always a possibility. We really are honored every time we have Gilman alumni come back to our office to work with us. And so a few other examples that I thought were really great is like a student wrote an article for their university for their university newspaper. Somebody else collaborated with their high school teacher. And then somebody else had an art exhibition. I know that recently there was a student that went to Italy and had like a little cooking presentation and talking about their experience in Italy and their experience applying to Gilman and how Gilman helped them achieve their goal of studying abroad. I will briefly touch on the critical need language essay because this is optional. A lot of students probably going on our programs probably aren't studying a critical need language. So first things first is making sure that you are studying a critical need language that is predominantly spoken in the country you're going to. So for example, Arabic was a language that is considered critical need. You can go to a country that predominantly speaks Arabic and it would be eligible. But if you're going to, let's say Canada, where it's not predominantly speaking, taking Arabic lessons there, that would not be eligible. So the second point is very important to make sure that it's eligible. And how does it relate to your career and academic goals? This is really key. Gilman wants to know that you are going to continue utilizing that language in the future. It's not something that you're just learning for the time being, but you hope to, for example, be, working in a government agency that will help you, utilize that language skill that you acquired while you were abroad. So that is probably the biggest part of this essay, is making sure that you can get those points across, that you will continue using the language in the future and how it's going to help you academically, professionally, and personally. I do want to point out some great writing, since a lot of it is writing these essays. We have a lot of support for you as you go through and you work with your essays. The key to any good writing is rewriting. So it's so important to get a head start. Our study abroad coordinators are always here to help you review essays. We definitely have, individuals at the think tank and our writing skills improvement program. All of these are links so you can find out what times, what kind of services they offer. And then we do have our Office of Nationally Competitive Scholarships. Valeria, if you want to talk a little bit about how you can lend some support to our students that are applying, I'd appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. Again, Office of National Competitive Scholarships. So my office works with a lot of different scholarships that they're all externally funded. So that means that the university at the end of the day does not decide who gets the scholarship, but our office is a resource to help you find these scholarships, apply for them, and hopefully obtain them. So some of the resources that we offer is that we can provide feedback for essays, but I am an office of like 1.5 for a very big campus. So I do ask that students give me at least one full week if they want a feedback from me. So if you come to me the day before the deadline, I can't promise you that I'm going to get it done because it's just not enough time. And it's also not really fair to you or fair to other students. So I want to make sure that I have the time to dedicate it to each and every essay to make sure that I'm I'm pointing out the right things and that I'm being as much of a resource as I can be. Another resource that we provide for like the different types of scholarships, some of them, Gilman is not one of them, but there are other scholarships that sometimes require interviews. And so we'll also do mock interviews to help students prepare for that. It can be really overwhelming to have to sit with a committee that you've never met. And so we will provide assistance with practice interviews and just whatever comes during the process. Sometimes students, they start off with one scholarship and that gets them going on applying for other scholarships that could be related to the one they already applied to. So for example, Gilman, maybe you want to explore other study abroad scholarships, but then maybe not. Maybe you're a STEM student who wants to know more about research scholarships, or you're a junior going into your senior year wanting to know what postgraduate opportunities exist and how you can fund your education, your graduate education. And that could be here in the US, but it could also be abroad because there's a lot of scholarships for that. So just kind of depends, but there's a lot of really cool opportunities. At the end of the day, the list that is on our website, which is oncs.arizona.edu, it is not an extensive list of all the external nationally competitive awards that exist because there's just so many. However, if you come to me and maybe you have something very niche that you're wanting to specialize in, even if I don't have the answers, I am part of a network of fellowship advisors across the country. And so if I don't have the answers, I can ask them, see if they have any ideas or suggestions. And usually that gets me something, so again, just another resource here on campus for all of you.
Thank you, Valeria. I really appreciate it. And we will be having some writing workshops coming up specifically for the Gilman March cycle, with the deadline being on March 9th. We'll be having an in-person and 2 virtual writing feedback workshops, and the goal of these is for students to come with working drafts of their essays, and we'll have our study abroad staff members available on hand to take a look at your essays and provide some feedback. So we have the writing resources to fully support you through your application. At this point, I'll go ahead and open it up to our Q&A session. We have Valeria, who you all just heard from, but I would also love to hear a little bit about her alumni story. As she mentioned, she is a Gilman alumni. And really quick, Patrick, if you are here, would you mind introducing yourself?
Everyone. My name is Patrick. I studied abroad in the northeast of Thailand through an immersive hands-on program where myself and my fellow students would be in class learning about materials such as the impacts of mining, and that would be followed by a week in the field learning from impacted communities. Felt my study abroad experience was really helpful because I got a lot of practical experience, so that when I went back to school, I was able to understand the theories I was learning using a frame of reference that was very real and down to earth.
Thanks, Patrick. I appreciate you being here. Sarah, are you on the line?
Yes.
Hi, please, if you could introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sarah Gravina. I went on a summer study abroad program, literature and culture in the United Kingdom. It says United Kingdom, but we were located in London, although there are locations outside of the city you can go to. We didn't get to do this when I went because after COVID it was very expensive, but you can take a day trip to Stratford-upon-Avon where Shakespeare lived, and you can also take 3-day weekends that you pay for and schedule yourself.
Thanks, Sarah. I appreciate it. And you just went this past summer, or in 2022, correct?
Yes, summer 2022.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. Jennifer, are you here? Could you introduce yourself, please? I don't know if Jennifer's available.
Hi.
Oh, there you are.
I'm sorry, I wasn't able to unmute, but here we are. Hi, everyone. So my name is Jennifer. I studied abroad in Switzerland this past summer 2022. it was a great experience. The program is called International Organizations in Europe. And we got the chance to go to the United Nations. We actually went to the European Council, European Parliament. We learned a lot about the World Bank, the Red Cross. It was such a great
Ooh, I'm having
for
a,
the
I think you're cutting out a little bit for me.
um,
Your screen's frozen too.
Oh, no. Yeah, Jacob, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. We just lost Jennifer.
Oh, no. Okay. Danielle, are you on the line? Do you mind introducing yourself?
Hi, my name's Danielle, and I was just in London for fall 2022. So mine was actually a 3-month program through UA Study Abroad, and yeah, so I was got my Gilman, which I used it mostly while being over there in London, just for any expenses that I needed. It was really helpful to not be worrying about financial needs while you're abroad. And while being in London, I traveled other places in Europe. So it's just a wonderful opportunity to go see something new. It is a bit longer than a summer. Instead of going 1 month, you go 3 months. But there are a lot of adjustments that you need to make, but it's worth going.
Thank you so much. And I will go ahead and start looking up some of the questions in the chat. Or if you have any question that hasn't been addressed, perhaps you can unmute yourself. And right now, since you have all our wonderful panelists here to support you, is a great time for these questions.
Daphne, I'll go ahead and field one of the ones that we were unable to answer in the chat that you might know the answer to.
Sure.
When a student is applying and they haven't submitted their financial aid yet, but they're applying for this in advance, what do they write on the financial aid line for how much they're receiving?
They write what they should be able to access that in New Access, hopefully through their award letter. And Angie actually might be a really great person to answer this question, because the financial aid certifier would be the one who ultimately confirms and verifies the information that they enter. Is that correct, Angie?
Exactly. So what ends up happening is when students are doing the Gilman scholarship, they were the certifier in financially will go ahead and just look to see if they are Pell eligible or not, and they will also look at that particular area. But what the students can go ahead and put for general financial aid for the summer is what was not utilized during the academic year. So that would be loans. But if the student received the federal Pell Grant, which of course you have to be federal Pell Grant eligible to receive Gilman, they will receive about a fourth of that during the summer time frame. So they can put a fourth of that amount for summer. And then if they received any university grant during the academic year, they can go ahead and add like another $1,000 to that amount as well. And then any leftover will be in loans, but usually loans aren't included by the students. But if you want to know specifically how much or a better estimate for each individual student, they can always talk to financial aid. Financial aid will go ahead and award students roughly about the middle of, like when spring break is happening, that's around the time frame that's the financial aid starts awarding students for the summer. So they'll get to know more about that time. So it's based on timing. So if you're trying to do it now and the applications are due before spring break, definitely talk to financial aid. They'll give you an estimate, and estimates are totally fine and understandable.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, what other questions? Lisette, were you seeing any other questions that we should bring up?
I think we've been able to keep up with the chat, but just in case someone didn't see, there was a question about fluency and just for going abroad, how often do you have to know the language before you go? And I think that's something that all of us are happy that you want to learn new languages, but it's not required. So a lot of the study abroads, you don't need to learn the language. Some are specific to language learning. So as you're looking up the program, you'll be able to see kind of what classes are offered. And based on those classes, you'll kind of have an idea if language is going to be a component.
Thank you. And anyone that has a question, feel free to drop it in the chat. Feel free to unmute yourself. We are here for you.
I'll just say, if you'd like to ask your question out loud, just raise your hand and then I'll unmute you.
Thanks, Jacob.
And I'll also point out too, I put the link in the chat earlier on. I'm going to drop it again. The Office of Scholarship and Financial Aid has a really great website talking all about aid and study abroad. And I know there was just a question, does my specific aid work on study abroad? That website has a really great chart. We use it all the time to verify your aid type and what study abroad scholarship or what study abroad programs it would apply to. So that's a really great place to get started. Alexander, you've got a question.
Yes. Thank you so much. I have appreciated all of the learning so far. I just wanted to ask kind of from the people who had been awarded the scholarship, kind of what you felt was maybe one of the most important or biggest pieces to you know, writing your essay and being awarded the scholarship. Thank you.
That is such a great question. I'll let our panelists take a stab at that one.
I can go ahead and answer that if that's okay.
Sure.
Well, and this is me speaking from both my personal experience, but also now my professional experience as someone who also does feedback for different scholarship essays. I think the biggest thing that you want to do with this is you're telling a story, right? And you're telling a story to committees that are looking at hundreds, if not thousands, of applications from across the country. So one, you want to make sure that you grab them early on in the essay. I think that's a big one. But also that throughout your essay, and you don't have a lot of space, so it's definitely a challenge to get all this information in there, but you want to also make sure that throughout the essay, you're explaining why this, this study abroad opportunity is a good fit for you and how you're a good fit for it, right? So like, what are you getting out of going to study abroad in this location? Like, how is this going to benefit your academic career? How is this going to benefit what you do post-college, right? So you got to add up all of these things for the scholarship committee. And essentially what you're doing is you're painting them a very complete visual, right? Like a very complete painting. And it should include like how this, is going to have a positive impact on your life, and how you'll also be able to use that to promote study abroad and promote these opportunities. So it's a lot to get in, but if written correctly, I think it's doable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Martin, go ahead.
Hey, hello. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay. This is another question for Valeria. Because you said you went to Brazil?
Yes, I did. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm thinking of going to Brazil as well. And I was wondering what you said in your essay on how you were going to use the language after you studied abroad.
Right. So yeah, I went to Brazil, which is a phenomenal program, big fan. And so at the time when I was applying, I was in my first semester of Portuguese, so I didn't have a huge background in the language. And unfortunately at the time, the additional funding for critical language study did not exist with Gilman, or else I would have gotten an extra 3K. But what I said is that I was a global studies major and I was a double major with Spanish, which is where my Portuguese requirement came in. And so for me, the argument that I made is like, I'm trying to go into international fields or something relevant to international. And so I really speak two of the most spoken languages across the world, but Portuguese being part of, a country that is like at that time, it was like the 8th economy in the world. That was kind of like my connection of like, well, it would be really helpful to have this language and to be fluent in it and understand the culture, because, you know, Brazil is so huge and it has such an impact. And I don't think that a lot of people realize that, especially if they're not really studying Latin American studies, but it does have a huge impact on so many different things. And I thought it was really important for my field and my interests to become a lot more fluent in the language.
Great questions. Martin, I see your hand up. Go for it.
Yeah, I kind of had a follow-up question. And this is about the submission of the essays. Are all essays, you need to submit all of them at the same time, or is it like by steps?
You submit it at the same time. They have fields that you enter your essays in, and we recommend that you write them out in like Word or Google Docs or something, because you can edit a little bit and do the character count as you go. So but it all will be submitted at the same time. You can start your application process before and work on it. So there's things like uploading your essays and including your program information, and save and go back to it and continue to work on it as you go along.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, great questions. One thing that's key too that I kind of didn't really mention at all is that Gilman Scholarship is not dispersed through your University of Arizona bursar's account. It's actually dispersed to your bank account. If students are awarded this this scholarship, it doesn't go through the U of A. It's not a U of A scholarship. So I think that that's a benefit. Earlier was mentioned that having the funds in their bank account really helped with expenses on the ground, and so there is some flexibility. It's not like students have to submit receipts on or anything like what they're spending it on, but it does have that flexibility since it's not being dispersed through your U of A bursar's account. Citations and other sources to recommended. If you're citing sources, I would probably recommend you cite them appropriately. Yes. Valeria, would you also have the same advice?
Yes, definitely. But I would say also just make sure, again, because you have limited space, that the citations that you're using, like there's a really valid reason for you to use them. Because with the essay, you're trying to get in as much information that is relevant to the scholarship as you can. So you don't want to use up a lot of space on something that maybe does not add to essentially the argument that you're trying to make for yourself, right? If you think it's very crucial to what you're trying to say, then yes, make sure that you're citing correctly.
Again, 7,000 characters, including spaces for your personal statement, which is about 1.5 pages. And so you'll probably find that you're running up against wanting more characters, I think is what students might be struggling with. So thank you, Valeria.
Yeah, I want to jump in. Alexander, I know you have a question, but real quick, just to build off that, it's my understanding, and for those of you that have applied and those of you who work on this more, they want to know more about you, right? And I want to encourage, because we had another question about like citations and format, but my understanding for the Gilman is like they're really interested in learning about you, and maybe this should be treated a little differently than a very rigorous academic paper. Would that be a correct assumption?
I would agree with that. Yes, absolutely.
I would agree with that as well, Jacob. Yeah.
Okay, wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah.
Alexander, go ahead. Oh, sorry, I
Um,
stepped on someone.
when I did my personal statement, it was somewhat conversational where I put some of my personality into it, which I think helped a lot because that way you're more of a person to them when they read it. Because like Valeria said, they read like 80 and it's probably incredibly monotonous. So don't be afraid to be a little less formal than you would be in a formal academic essay. I mean, don't be rude per se, but it's okay for you to use contractions or put your sense of humor in there.
I want to interject here just for a second to say, does anyone feel kind of intimidated, like to hear that maybe 80 students are applying, that reviewer is going to read 80? It sounds like a lot, right? It can be a little scary. Something Daphne mentioned, if you leave from this, why it's so important that you apply anyways, is because you will be given $500. So if you're intimidated by this, if you're afraid to write the essay, if you're afraid to submit, just keep that in mind as we're talking about this, because we want the intimidation piece to go away. And there's a lot of information for you, but to think you came to this session, you learned how you're going to get $500 just by applying. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all. That's great advice. I really appreciate it. And I actually, I'm so sorry, Alexander. I want one more stat I want to throw in, but I'm really proud of this stat. Is nationally about 1 in 5-ish students get awarded the Gilman. Our students are so incredible. It's about 1 in 3. So 33% of our students that are applying actually get selected. So it's not one of those unicorn scholarships that's like, you know, you might as well win the Powerball. It's truly, truly, truly an achievable scholarship. So this is what we're trying to do, is show you that 100% all of you are capable of doing this. You're all worthy of doing this, and you all deserve this. So please, 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 if anything, you walk away from this session is just being encouraged. And Alexander, I'll send it over your way.
No worries. I'm so glad to hear more about it. So no worries at all. And yeah, thank you. It's great to learn more about the essays. One piece about scholarship essays I've always been kind of curious about is many of them describe, you know, your financial need. And I was kind of curious, maybe if some people could share examples of how to, you know, respectfully and appropriate talk about financial need in paper without just being like, I need money to do this. But
Yeah, Danielle, feel free.
So I think the way I focused on the financial aspect during the essays, or like how I focused on how it would help me and focus more on academics, because I wouldn't be worrying as much about financial any needs that I had. So I think that was just a way to not, obviously you're not just saying like, oh, I need money, you know, because but it's a way I feel that it's very valid and very important, because financial problems do take a toll on you. And mostly if you're studying abroad and you're worrying, you might limit yourself. So I made sure to mention how it would help a lot to focus on my studies as well as enjoy the experience as a whole, because you're not limiting yourself as much as if you had more problems with.
Yeah, that's a really great question too, Alexander, because remember, you know, one of the eligibility requirements is having a Pell Grant. And if students have a Pell Grant, it means that students have demonstrated financial need. And I think what students need to be reminded of is, what does that mean to you personally? It's this scholarship exists to remove barriers. So it's not like you're sitting there, you know, asking for money. That's the whole point of this. So thinking about, what does your financial need mean to you? Does that mean that you have to, you know, get a second job? Does that mean you watch your siblings because your parents are working? What does that mean? Each story, or each student has their own story. So at the end of the day, you're all starting with having, you know, a Pell Grant. So make sure you explain what that means to you personally. Great questions. Thank you all.
Just real quick to add, I wanted to add to what was being mentioned before, and from my own experience, which I learned it now so I can share it. When I learned about the Gilman, it was like a month before, it was very close to the deadline. So I guess what I'm trying to get at is I hesitated a lot because I thought like I wasn't gonna even get it. I did think about it as a unicorn scholarship, as Daphne mentioned, but it was so crazy to see when I actually like received it. I didn't have like the preparation that you guys are getting right now. So I take advantage of that. But that's just to say, if you are hesitating or if you feel like, oh, like for some reason you weren't able to do it now and the deadline's coming up, I turned it in pretty close to the deadline. I'm not advising people to do that, but I'm just saying if you do get close to it, still send it in anyways, because people, they are going to read it, and I got it. So you can get it too. And also another important thing is that with the emails from Gilman, since mine was Europe, these go through, but once I was accepted, I actually didn't see it until like a month after I was accepted, because it would go to my spam because it was Europe. So I would just make sure to check all of that, because there are deadlines for like where you're going to live while you're studying abroad that come in all in that information. Just make sure that you're always checking even your spam on email.
That is great advice. I love that. Thank you so much. And as Danielle mentioned, it's really important. You all are here. We're preaching to the choir, of course. So early start is just imperative, because then you can have, for example, Valeria look at your essay. You could come to a few of those writing workshops. We have 3 of them. If you want to attend all 3, great, we will welcome you at all 3. And so take advantage of this planning time, and it just ups your chances of success. I'm going to read it with my eyes and my perspective and provide advice, but then Valeria or Lisette or Jacob might provide completely different perspective and different advice, and you can consolidate all our insight and integrate it how you see fit, right? So thank you, Danielle, for sharing that. And email communications, definitely, especially after you submit, you're going to be receiving communication from your study abroad coordinator, from Gilman. So it's important to stay up to date on those emails.
Definitely, just to add to what you just said, it is really important to get all eyes that you can on your essays, because as Daphne pointed out, we're all looking at it from different angles and we're like seeking different things out. But that also, not on top of us being resources, which we are and we're happy to be, I would also say, like, do you have faculty that you trust and that you respect? And, they could give you really wonderful feedback because they know you from a different angle, right? So they can give you a very different perspective than we can. So if there's faculty or even staff on campus that you work closely with or that you have a good relationship with, don't be afraid to seek out their help. Like, they're going to be happy to do so. Obviously, they need time in advance. If you come to them, a week before the deadline, that's not enough time, but seek them out. They are resources and they are happy to be resources. And if there's somebody else in your life too, I went as far back as getting my AP English teacher from my senior year of high school to also read my Gilman essay, my study abroad coordinator, and of course my a faculty member from U of A that I really had a close relationship with. They all looked at it and they all had different feedback to give. And the cool thing about feedback is you get to decide what you do with it. We can't force you to make any changes. So you get to take as much feedback as you want from different people, and then you can come and decide what feedback is the best fit for what you're trying to say.
And everybody who's here today will receive a link, like I said, with my presentation slides, all the links that are included in the slides, my speaker notes. But then I also have some sample essays from previous Gilman alumni. I have a writing guide, some questions to ask yourself to make sure you're addressing those prompts, some writing resources that you can work on your own independently as well as you plan and apply. And I know we're at time, so if you all have to run, please go ahead. And I thank you so very much for being here today and learning more about the Gilman. And I really hope to see you at some of these writing workshops that I had posted on those other slides. Please reach out with any questions. We have some amazing people here on the call that I can direct you to if you want to touch base with any of our panelists. I'm sure they'd be more than happy to share their email. And to my panelists here today, thank you. I couldn't have done it without you. I appreciate all your experience and wisdom you bring to these. So thank you so very much. And I'm here for a few more minutes if you all want to ask some questions if we run out of time. I intentionally left space after because I know that there's always questions that we don't get to.